What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Saturdays in the SEC, episode 98. We're here to recap a really fun Week 10. Had a lot of great games in the SEC this week. A couple huge matchups. Top 15, top 20 matchups with Alabama and LSU, Georgia, Missouri, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, among others. And we're going to jump right into some of the early games. Ole Miss, as I just mentioned, defeated Texas A&M in Oxford. 38-35. I mean, this was definitely one of the best games of the entire day, if not the best one. So, Ole Miss, keeps rolling. They're still only at one loss. They're firmly inside the top 10 as of the new rankings tonight. They're number 9, so they're putting together a really impressive season. But kind of, what did you see from this Ole Miss team? Obviously, this was a pretty back and forth kind of game down the stretch, especially in the second half. But what did you see from Ole Miss and kind of from A&M's performance as well?
Obviously, Ole Miss started out hot. I mean, they had a chance to go up 21-0, and then penalty, I believe, got the points taken off the board, and then a couple more penalties got them backed up, and they ended up, I believe, they turned the ball over on a block kick. Well, I say it's turned the ball over. They ended up having to go for or kick a field goal, and the kick got blocked, and A&M ran it back for a touchdown. That kind of completely flipped the momentum. If that doesn't happen, Ole Miss probably runs away with this a lot bigger. I mean, obviously, they only won by 3, but they had control of this game for the most part. And if they would have been able to go up 21-0, I mean, that was a 14-point swing right there that happened off those penalties and then that block kick. But definitely an exciting game. I thought some of the play calling for A&M was a little bit questionable. Still a well quarterback game. Like we talked about, the quarterbacks coming on at the end of the season. Usually, it's not nothing strange to see, but this was a well played game by the quarterbacks. I mean, both quarterbacks went over 300 yards. Were a couple of turnovers on A&M's side, and just some bonehead penalties on Ole Miss's side that kind of hurt them a little bit. But when Ole Miss was up 31-21, I believe what the score was, I ended up flipping it to another game. And then I went and got a shower, and I came back out, and I flipped it back to the A&M game. And A&M was up. And I was like, what in the hell happened? So obviously I went back and watched and things like that. But I was like, man, the complete back and forth game. But, yeah, I think you're right. What you said last week, I think Jimbo is hanging on by a thread. And if he's not going at the end of this year, he's going to have one more shot, I think, one more year before they, write him a big old check to quit coaching, which is the best job in the world. You're getting paid millions to not do anything, to get out of town. Like Edo said, you're going to pay me $1 million or $75 million to not coach. Show me the door. Give me the check and show me the door. So I think that Jimbo's got that in his near future. I honestly think they might give him one more year, but I could be wrong on that. He might be gone at the end of this year if he doesn't turn things around. But first half, I mean, all Ole Miss, honestly. And then, props to A&M for how they fought back and they stayed in it. They didn't let it get away from them. But to be able to be down 10, then you end up taking the lead and you let that slip away from you. It was a brutal finish by A&M. I mean, didn't finish obviously, but hats off to Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin. He's got them rolling, and like you said, got him in the top 10. Officially today, tonight the new rankings were released. He's a top 10 team, and 100% he is every bit of a top 10 team. I'm so excited for this Ole Miss Georgia game that we're going to get soon.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I want to talk a little bit about Ole Miss first, and just it's really kind of the same theme as we've had all year, man. I continue to be more and more impressed with Jackson Dart, man. The way that he runs this offense, I mean, the consistency with which he's playing at right now, just you can just see such a confidence, in this the comfort in this offense that he has. And I'll be honest, man, Trey Harris is not being talked about enough nationally.
Dog, dude.
I mean, that man is incredible. 11 catches, 213 yards, a touchdown. He put on an absolute show. Man, he is so fun to watch in this offense, and the chemistry he's got going with Jackson Dart right now. Jordan Watkins has had a solid season as well. I mean, they've just got really good, athletes all over this offense. Obviously, Quinshon Judkins, we know, what he is and what kind of production he's put up at, pretty early on in his career still. But Yeah, I'm just really impressed with the way that Jackson Dart's just running this offense. And man, just he had a solid season last year, man, but the strides that he has made has been really fun to watch. And I love watching them play offense. And they just kind of keep building and keep growing. So yeah, is it really fun to watch them play? Um, and A&M, obviously had a good offensive day as well. I mean, they matched them, especially in the second half, and I just thought that Ole Miss made a few more plays than they did. And kind of going on with Texas A&M a little bit. I was texting you the other day about it. I think this is about all they can stomach, man. I think it as crazy as it sounds, with the buyout as high as it is, and it seems crazy, like to pay that amount of money. But I'll be honest, I just think with the 12-team playoff coming up, I think with Texas and OU joining, I just think the added pressure that kind of comes with that, I just think they just can't stomach it much longer. I think they're going to pull the plug. Honestly, I think they're going to end 7-5, and that's all she wrote. I think they're going to write the check and bring in a new guy. Honestly, I just it's kind of one of those things. It's like if you really know he's not the guy, it's better off just to pull the plug, be done with it. Because what's going to happen is it's going to drag on another year. You're going to get the same mediocre results, underachieving results with a really talented roster, and you're going to be in the same situation this time next year. That's what I think, honestly. Because I don't think they're going to win a title next year. I don't even know if they'll compete for one, to be honest with you. I think they have the players to do it, but so far this coaching staff has not proven that they can do it. And Jimbo's a veteran head coach. He's had more than enough time there. And if he can't get it done by now, I just don't see him getting it done. And I don't think they're going to give him the opportunity. I think this may be the end of the road for him there. But man, if that does happen, that's going to be a crazy search. And I'm curious to see who they target, because it's going to be one of the more sought after jobs in the country by far.
100%. I just can't believe he's not doing more with all these guys he's got. I mean, he's got one of the best rosters in college football. They aren't performing like it, but for sure, you look at the paper and he has got one of the best rosters in college football, and he is putting up the same type of season that teams with a mediocre roster are putting up. But it 100% all comes back to coaching. Like we talked about with Mike Bubba last week, your coach is only as good as your players. But this guy's got the cream of the crop players, and he's putting out mediocre seasons after mediocre season. He's had one good season since he's been at A&M, and I mean, he shows out against Alabama, but other than that, they don't perform well. So I think you're right. I think he should be gone at the end of this year, but I don't know that he will be. I mean, obviously only time will tell, but I think he definitely should get the can at the end of this season, because whatever bowl they make it to, it's not going to be a glamorous bowl. And hell, they might not even win that. People opt out of the bowl games. Some people in the transfer portal around the bowl game. And if the writing's on the wall that he's going to be, fired at the end of the year, he probably will be fired before the bowl game if that happens. There's no telling how many guys are going to hit the portal to go play somewhere else, and how bad their season's going to end if the writing is on the wall in that program. So that's going to be something else to watch out for. How many players of that magnitude, decide to hit the portal if they decide, or if they figure out that he's going to be canned.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what they do. I mean, that's one of the things I'm going to be watching closely. I mean, I'm like you. I could see it going either way. Would not be surprised if he gets fired. Also, wouldn't be surprised if he got one more year. I just know, and you just hear the rumblings of they're growing pretty restless with it at this point. Like I said, this is one of the top rosters in the sport, and they should be getting better results out of this group. And I mean, like they were the more talented team on Saturday. On paper, A&M has a better roster than Ole Miss does.
Oh yeah.
But Ole Miss is just a better operation. They're getting more out of their guys than A&M's getting out of their guys. And that's why, Ole Miss is sitting at 8-1 and A&M's at 5-4. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be fascinating to watch for sure. I mean, like I said, if that domino does drop, man, that's going to be probably definitely one of the top 5 most coveted positions in college football. I mean, they have everything you need to win. We've talked about that, ad nauseum on this podcast. I mean, they've got the facilities, the money, I mean, obviously they're in a recruiting hotbed in the state of Texas. So I just feel like with Texas, the way that program's trending, now they're in the SEC. You're going to be in direct competition with them. You see what Steve Sarkisian's doing over there. And then with the 12-team playoff, I just feel like there's going to be a little added pressure, maybe than normal, to go ahead and make a move. And we know how they throw around money out there. So I just don't think I don't think they're going to have a problem writing that check. Obviously, nobody wants to do that, but at the end of the day, I think it's a real possibility, and I don't think anybody will be shocked if it does happen. But will be fascinating to keep up and see how they finish the season and kind of how things are trending out that way. But I want to kind of talk about now another 11 o'clock game. A team that desperately needed a win was the Arkansas Razorbacks, and they got one. Man, that was a wild game in Gainesville the other day. Obviously, kind of a gut wrenching loss for Florida. Obviously, they been up and down, but I felt like overall they were in a pretty good position this year, and kind of I guess compared to where people thought, maybe thinking, okay, we're a little ahead of schedule possibly, and that was kind of a gut punch loss. But from Florida's perspective, I don't look at it as, you can't really look at the trajectory of a program on a game-to-game basis. You kind of have to look at it over a large sample size. So this loss doesn't change my perspective or my thoughts on Billy Napier or the trajectory of the program. I still feel the same I did about it last week. Obviously, it was a really, really tough loss because that's a game, they should win at home. The way Arkansas was struggling and Florida's obviously been really good, in the swamp this year and under Billy Napier so far. But, we know that year 2, this wasn't really the make or break year for him. I mean, we know what he's got on the horizon with the number 3 ranked recruiting class right now coming in. DJ Lagway's a 5-star quarterback, one of the best in the country. And then we've seen some of the success they've had in the transfer portal as well. So his tenure is more tied to that than right now.
Right.
He's actually following a very similar path to Mike Norvell at Florida State. If you look how his first 2 years went, pretty eerily similar. And then you kind of look what's on the horizon for him with an elite recruiting class coming in, and a talented quarterback. So very eerily similar, trajectories for both of them so far. So we know his future is more tied to that than the results on a game-to-game basis of this season. But obviously still a pretty gut-wrenching loss for them. But on the other hand, Arkansas desperately needed one. Thought the offense showed a lot more life than we've seen over the past, most of this year, to be honest with you. They fired Dan Enos a few weeks ago. But I like what I saw from their offense. KJ Jefferson looked better. They were able to run the ball more effectively than they have. So it was a good step in the right direction for Arkansas and a much-needed win for their program.
Yeah, 100%. Like you alluded to, they ran the ball extremely well. I mean, 47 times they ran the ball for 226 yards and a touchdown. KJ Jefferson looked – honestly, he's played well all year, but we've talked about multiple times on this podcast about the offensive line troubles that they've had down there at Arkansas, and he really doesn't have any time in the pocket. He's got people all over him all the time, getting pressured nonstop. So he's played about as well as he could with what he's got around him. But I thought he played a fantastic game. I thought the defense played really good. I mean, they had strip sack touchdown that really, helped flip some momentum to them. We've talked about, or I've talked about multiple times the last few weeks, they're in every single game. They just couldn't finish, but they found a way to finish this week. They drove down and scored at the end of the fourth quarter, and then Florida answered with, I believe, in 2 plays they answered. And I was like, man, that's it. Florida's going to win this game. Arkansas is going to lose another close one, another one-possession game. And Arkansas found a way to fight back and take it to overtime. This was a very exciting game. I was flipping back and forth from a couple of the games I was watching and had some money on, but this game right here was one of the better games that I've seen. Ending wise, for sure. I always love a game that goes into overtime. You get free football. Who doesn't like free football? I do have. We all know I have the futures bet on Florida under 5.5. So when Florida answered in 2 plays and took the lead with however many seconds or minutes it was to go in the game, I was like, God, they got me on that one. They gonna win my $50 or whatever, however much I bet on $60, I believe. So I was like, man, that hurts. But Arkansas found a way to answer back and ended up tying it up, taking it to overtime. And I thought that it was, music to my ears, obviously, because my bet is still alive, and that's always a good sign. But I thought that Arkansas finally played a complete game and finally found a way to finish and bring it home to the Arkansas faithful, which I love because I'm a big Sam Pittman guy, love him to death. But going into, if you'd have asked me how I felt about the Auburn-Arkansas game last week, I would have told you I'm a lot more confident that Auburn's going to win this game. But then after how they played this week, offensively especially, defensively wasn't that great, but offensively especially, I'm kind of a little more concerned. I'm not as confident that Auburn's going to get it done, especially being at Fayetteville. So I'm excited for this game. But if that offense shows up, that showed up against Florida, could be a long day because Auburn's offense has gotten better. But I mean, Arkansas's defense is nothing to brag about. So it could be a back and forth trading blows type game. But on the road, going to be a tough environment. I mean, Arkansas fans, they're faithful, man. They're going to show up. They're going to be loud. They care. I think Arkansas has got a lot better chance than Auburn does this week. If you'd asked me last week, I said I think Auburn was going to have a better chance. But now, just coming off this win, which it was a very high, coming off a high win, high emotions, that's always hard to follow up the next week. But I think that Pittman's going to have his guys ready to roll, and this is going to be a tough game for Auburn this weekend down in Arkansas, and I'm not near as confident as I was if you'd have asked me last week for sure.
Well, I think too the record, doesn't really do them justice either.
Mm-mm.
I mean, we know they've struggled offensively for a lot of the year, but they definitely look like they found something. They found some confidence, certainly, in Gainesville. But yeah, this team's sitting at 3-6, but it doesn't tell the story for them. I mean, we see how many close calls they've had, how tough they played, even the top teams in the SEC. I mean, they played Alabama really, really close. They played LSU really, really, really close. So, I mean, they've had a multitude of close losses. So, this is not a bad a football team as the record indicates. So, yeah, I'm like you. I mean, if I'm Arkansas, I definitely, feel better about Arkansas this week playing Auburn. Like you said last week, I would have said Auburn, kind of the way they were trending. Still will not be surprised at all if they don't win this game. This really feels like a complete toss-up to me. I mean, that's why the line's only 3 right now. I think it's moved up slightly, but it's basically just got home field baked into it. I mean, it's on a neutral field, it'd be pretty much a pick 'em, and that's kind of how I feel about it, honestly. As you said, though, I think Auburn's, definitely been better offensively the last couple of weeks. Kind of a funny story. So, obviously, it was going on the same time as the Georgia-Missouri game. So there were some other really good 2:30 games, in non-conference, and Bedlam was going on and stuff. So I promise you, I flipped over to Auburn about 3 different times throughout the first 2 or 3 quarters. I'm not lying to you. Every time I flipped it over there, the first time Jarquez broke the run for the touchdown. I kid you not, flipped it back off, flipped it back later. The next play, Jarquez broke another one.
Yeah.
Flipped it, flipped to another game, flipped back later on in the game. I forgot who it was the
Probably
third time.
Rivaldo.
Yeah, he broke a touchdown. So I promise you, the first 3 plays I saw of the game were all Auburn touchdowns. I mean,
We'll
it
do
was
that again this
crazy. So,
weekend.
yeah, so I guess I don't know what happened. I was like, on the third time, I was like, well, I think I'm gonna stop flipping it over here. But anyway, no, that was funny. But yeah, I think I texted you during the game, man. The more you can get the ball in Jarquez Hunter's hands, the better. I mean, this was definitely obviously he was able to hit a few seams. They were able to bust some holes for him, and man, he is just absolutely explosive with the ball in his hands. He gets to the second, third level, it's pretty much a house call. So, yeah, that was good to see. I mean, from Auburn's perspective, I mean that's your go to, that's your workhorse, and the more you can get the ball in his hands and get him in space, the more effective that offense is going to be. But kind of what did you see from it, and kind of what do you expect, I guess, moving forward as we go into the Arkansas game and then down the stretch towards the Iron Bowl?
Yeah, like you said, Jarquez being able to tote the rock the way he did. He's, early in the year he was suspended, so he didn't play the first few games. He was out of practice, so kind of those first few weeks, it was like he wasn't in full stride. Maybe quote unquote knocking the rust off, whatever you want to call it. But the last few weeks he's been dialed in. They've been handing the ball, feeding him more, like we've talked about. Just give him the ball and good things will happen. Just let him keep pounding against the defense, and eventually good things will happen. And they did that. And I thought Peyton Thorne played a much better game again this week. He's finally growing and progressing as the quarterback. He's finally taken the job over, and he is the QB1. Did make one bad mistake there in the end zone, threw a pick six. I believe it was in the second quarter. He thought he was making the check down pass. He said he didn't see the guy. Hugh Freeze said he asked him on the sidelines, what happened? He said, I honestly just didn't see him. He's like, that's on me. I take full responsibility. I just didn't see the guy. So, that happens. And that kind of, it makes you not happy, obviously, that happened. But they scored twice, and one of them was a 2-yard pick six off a quarterback mistake. So if you're only allowing a team to score against you one time defensively, or your defense is only allowing one touchdown for 4 quarters, I mean, that's definitely, gives you a lot of confidence and gives you, you're doing something right. And so I thought the defense played well. I thought the special teams played extremely well. They got robbed one time of a muff punt. The first time that Vandy muffed the punt, Auburn got called for illegal interference or illegal touching, whatever they call it. Dude never touched the guy that was receiving the punt. Auburn never touched him at all. The dude just completely muffed the punt. Jalen Simpson dove on top of it, and then they ended up getting the ball back because they said that it was illegal touching, which was crap. And then I believe they punted again 2 or 3 drives later, and the same thing happened. But then Vandy ended up recovering the muff punt. But I thought the special teams played extremely well. Offensively, they played well. I mean, late in the game, second half, they were kind of pinned deep in their own territory a lot. Didn't have a lot of great drives, but also when you're in that territory, Hugh Freeze said he was being aggressive, about as aggressive as you can be. So he threw it a couple times where you wouldn't necessarily throw a ball in that situation. He said he was being as aggressive as he could, and that he liked what he saw. But for the most part, the defense played out of their mind like they've been doing all year. They're finally Auburn's offense is finally piecing it drives together. So it's giving the defense time to rest. So when they get back on the field, they're still playing, elite level. So that's very promising. And I think that is going to be what has to get Auburn the win this weekend at Arkansas. Is they're going to have to piece drives together into every drive and a kick, like we've talked about multiple times, whether it be a punt, a field goal, or an extra point. Got to end every drive in a pick or a kick. Excuse me. Can't turn the ball over. No stupid turnovers, because if you turn the ball over against Arkansas with a 2-yard pick six and allow them to inch their way back in there, they're going to be in at the end of the game, and they're going to probably find a way to win. I know we talked about they haven't found a lot of ways to finish, but at home, a game like this, they're going to be up for it. And if you give them things like that, they're going to find a way to to be in the ball game at the end and not make it easy on you. So Auburn's going to have to do a better job of not turning the ball over. But they didn't do terrible this weekend, obviously. But got to clean those, just bonehead mistakes up. But I really am liking what I'm seeing from Peyton Thorne for sure. He's definitely grown the last 3 to 4 weeks in the quarterback role. So as long as he can keep progressing going into this week, next week, and in the Iron Bowl, I like Auburn's chances to be in every game. They should win this game this weekend, but like I said, I'm a little less confident in their ability to do so now because of how Arkansas performed this week. I feel like their offense was a little more freed up without Dan Enos there. I could be wrong, but it seemed like they were playing with a little more loose and a little more free. But so is Auburn on the same coin. I think that Auburn's playing a lot more loose, like we talked about a few weeks ago. Hugh Freeze said he just wants them to not be afraid to make a mistake. Don't play timid, just let it rip. Go out there and trust your instincts, trust your guys, trust your practice, trust all the reps that you've had. Just let it rip and hang loose and play ball. So I think it's going to be a fun game. But the way that Auburn's trending, and especially with the way that Hugh Freeze has been recruiting, and then this next year, I think this season will be Hugh Freeze's first full recruiting class as the Auburn head coach. I like the way Auburn's trending for sure.
Well, we talked about, feeding Jarquez Hunter and just kind of looking at the numbers here. So in 4 of his first 5 games, so he only had more than 11 carries one time in the first 5 games. So he had 19 against Georgia. The other 4 games, he had 11 or less. And then the last 3 games, obviously, and you mentioned too, he was out early in the year. Last 3 games, he's got 15 carries, 17, and 19. So he's gradually trended up. His last 2 games have been by far his best. He had 17 carries, 144 yards against Mississippi State, and the 19 for 183 against Vandy. So, he's really coming to his own, I think, and it's no surprise that Auburn's offense is improving and coming more into its own as he does, because this offense is going to go as he goes, and the better he plays.
You mentioned it probably 2 months ago. Peyton Thorne's year when Michigan State won 10 games or 11 games, whatever it was, their running game was absolutely off the chain, and so it allowed him to not have all the pressure on him. They were keying in on the run a little bit. It opened up the passing game a lot more. And the very next year, the running game was not near as good, and Peyton Thorne struggled. So then you see at the beginning of the year how the running game really wasn't getting going, and Peyton Thorne struggled tremendously, along with, going in and out, getting traded in and out with Robbie. But now that the running game's starting to grow and get better and more consistent, Peyton Thorne's getting better and more consistent. He's starting to progress in the quarterback role. So I think you're 100% right on that. You give Peyton Thorne a good running game, he's going to be playing off the chain at the quarterback spot.
Yeah, I mean, it really goes hand in hand. I mean, I think the more success you can have on the ground and kind of easing that pressure off him a little bit, obviously it's going to open some things down the field and allow him to be a little bit more comfortable and not have the, entire, offense on his shoulders, so to speak. At times when he was at Michigan State, just didn't have a consistent run game to lean on. I believe in 2022 and then 2021, they had Kenneth Walker in that backfield, and they were just able to really run the ball and be a balanced offense. And obviously that's when he's playing at his best, and that's what a lot of quarterbacks need. I mean, because I really do. I think he can be definitely an average quarterback to above average. I mean, I think he's got the skill set to be able to do it. I think too, and as he's got more comfortable, with his receivers, obviously in this offense, different than what he ran at Michigan State. So, it's all kind of coming together and, trending, at the right time. And obviously this was a stretch that they needed to kind of get right a little bit, a stretch for them to rack up a few victories in a row and get some momentum, towards the end of this first year for Hugh Freeze. So I'm not surprised at all. I think it's going to be a great game on Saturday, though, with Arkansas. And I think both teams are going to come out fired up, ready to get a win. As you mentioned, Arkansas regardless of record, is going to come out ready to play and be hungry for a win as well. So should be an exciting game. Another exciting game from Saturday, man, the Georgia-Missouri game.
Oh, yeah.
I do want to tip my hat. I know Missouri and Eli Drinkwitz, their crew, just like any other major college team, they're not into moral victories, but I do want to tip my cap to them for coming in and playing a heck of a game, having a chance late. They had a promising drive there to potentially take the lead, and obviously through the interception, kind of on a little screen pass to a defensive lineman. I think it was Stackhouse for Georgia.
Yeah.
Rumbling, bumbling down the sidelines, man. Yeah, they had a promising drive going. They were down 27-21, could have took the lead. They were about at I think they were at the 50-yard line actually. So yeah, a couple turnovers late. The last pick, they were down by 9, so probably didn't matter anyways. But all in all, it was a really fun game. And I think too, a lot of people see like Georgia, only beating them by 9. Like they only put up 30 and all, didn't beat them maybe as convincingly as people thought. But I think it just shows you the thin margin for error in this league, man. I mean,
I also think that people see it in that way because the logo.
Yeah.
If this logo was Auburn and they were 7-1 at the time and Georgia only won by 9, they'd be saying it's a great win, fantastic win. Or if it was Tennessee and they were 7-1 at the time that they beat them, they would say fantastic win. Georgia got away with a great win. But it's just because it's Missouri. But they're in the same league as those other two teams that I just mentioned, and they're 7-1 at the time they were playing this game. So it's not like Georgia beat Missouri of last year when they struggled against them. This is a damn good football team. I mean, and we not just a few people have that problem or see it that way. I mean, I'm victim of seeing it that way too, because you just look at the logo and what has gone on the last 20, 25 years of that program. You don't think that program's an elite program. And maybe they aren't an elite program, but in certain years, a team can be elite. And only having 2 losses in the conference, in the SEC, is definitely you are an elite team. I mean, you look at LSU, they had 2 losses going into this game, going into Alabama, and everybody was talking up this game and talking about how great a team they were. Well, this Missouri team is just as good a team as that LSU team. I mean, they played LSU super tight. So I think that the people saying, well, they only won by 9, they walked away with a lucky victory. It's like, man, this is a damn good football team. You're just looking at the logo instead of looking at the football team of what they're doing this year. And I think that's a lot of the problem of what we've seen and the disrespect towards Missouri this year for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Brady Cook obviously has been playing really good football for Missouri. Cody Schrader had a really nice game. Luther Burden, I mean, that dude takes a backseat to nobody in the SEC. Yeah. I mean, he's a big-time playmaker. So, yeah, Missouri's not as talented as Georgia, but they've got some really talented guys, and they're getting the most out of what they have this year. So I'm happy for them. It's really cool to see. I mean, and in the SEC, man, it's hard to move up. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to – if your program's in a certain place, it's hard to move up the kind of program rankings, I guess you could say, in the SEC. Like, it's hard to move up. Like Josh Pate was saying, like, if you look at tiers in the SEC, you got, Alabama, Georgia, and then, LSU and, Tennessee and teams like that. And it's hard to move up, like, to actually pass programs. Like, obviously, in individual seasons, things get shuffled around a lot. But when you're talking about the actual state of programs, it's hard to move up that ladder. It's such a competitive league. And what he was saying is, like, yeah, you can't do it in 1 year, but Missouri looks like they're on the verge of being able to move up those rankings and not be in that lower tier anymore and be able to really move up and maybe pass a few teams. And, I mean, they look like they could be on their way to doing that. Obviously, it takes more than just this year.
Right.
But I like what they've got going there. Heard some really good things about their coaching staff as a whole. Like, a lot of people are bragging about this coaching staff as a whole being really underrated nationally. So heard a lot of good things about them. And obviously the results are kind of speaking for themselves. But yeah, just want to tip my hat to them. and kind of looking at this from Georgia's perspective, if you're waiting on Carson Beck to have a bad game, newsflash, you're still waiting because
You're
he
gonna
has
be
not
waiting
had
a
a bad
while.
game yet. He has been playing really solid football, especially even though he's a veteran, obviously still a first year starter. Um, man, he's played very, very well this year. Um, but all in all, it was just a really good game. About what I expected. I didn't think Missouri would quite be able to pull it off. But they played them really, really tough and gave themselves an opportunity in the end. But both these teams have another huge matchup this week. Ole Miss obviously coming into Athens to play Georgia should be a really fun matchup. And then Missouri will be hosting Tennessee, so that'll be another big battle in the SEC East. So, um, yeah, both these teams are going to kind of have to flush this one quickly, good or bad, because they've got really big time ranked matchups coming up this week.
Absolutely.
Kind of moving on now to the Alabama LSU game, obviously one of the games of the week, and one that everybody was looking forward to, uh, not just in the SEC but nationally. Man, I tell you what, this was a heck of a first half. Um, Definitely one of the more entertaining games of this weekend, and obviously this is a matchup that people look for all year long. I mean, this has been a really exciting rivalry over the past decade plus. But yeah, just kind of my initial thoughts from it is Kevin Steele, his second half adjustments or whatever he's saying in the locker room has continued to pay big dividends. Um, Man, they have
I
played
told him
just
I was the prophet for Kevin Steele and the Alabama fans. Nobody wanted to listen to me in the summer, but they all want to listen to me now.
and no, I'm with you 100%, man. I mean, he has been definitely one of the best assistant coach hires of this past cycle. There's no doubt about it. Um, like you said, it's not even obviously you see it with your eyes. Like you can see a difference in Alabama's defense. I mean, and like I said, not that their defenses were bad before. I mean, they've had all good defenses the past since Nick Saban's been there. I mean, they're all in the grand scheme of things, they're all good defenses, but you can tell a different edge this year than you've seen the past few years.
I mean, Pete
Um,
Golden had these same guys plus Will Anderson, and his defenses were not near this good.
no, it's really just a difference in attitude. I feel like a difference in intensity, a difference in, as I mentioned, just being able to make positive second half adjustments and and that's what a lot of the thing this defense had that a lot of the other earlier Alabama defenses under Saban have had is too is they seem to get better as the game goes along. Like the
Yeah.
more they see the opposing offense, they're able to adjust and kind of adapt and be able to make changes on the fly. And they're better in the second half or better in the fourth quarter than maybe they were earlier in the game. That's kind of been the trend this year. I mean, it's like the more opportunities they get to see the other offense, the better they've been. And obviously, the better the offense has played, the better the defense has played as well. Because thought this was, and Tommy Reese has gotten some hate and he's gotten some words from me as well. But I mean, I will say this was Tommy Reese was in his bag Saturday night. I'll just go ahead and say it. He was in his bag. It is really cool to see because not only has Jalen Milroe grown, but it's like Tommy Reese has grown right alongside him. It's like they're growing into one. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So it's just like the more reps they get, the more game action they get. They're not only is Jalen Milroe learning his strengths more, but Tommy Reese is learning exactly what is fitting Jalen Milroe's strengths better and better as we go. So it's been really cool to see. I mean, I obviously thought that was Milroe's best game. Love the quarterback run game. I think they've been kind of sitting on that a little bit the last few weeks and really waiting for the right time to fully break it out. But yeah, I thought Tommy Reese called a really great game, fit Milroe's strengths to a T. And I think Milroe's got more and more comfortable, on the read option, making decisions. Obviously sacks were not an issue in this game. Was able to get the ball out of his hands, and the pass protection overall was definitely some of the best that we have seen. And I know this isn't the most elite LSU defense, but definitely a lot of improvements from what we've seen earlier in the year. So kind of the gains that they made from Texas and South Florida, it just looks like a totally different quarterback, totally different offense, totally different offensive coordinator. So they just continue to kind of trend in that right direction, and hopefully they can keep that going this week against Kentucky. Obviously, the 11 a.m. road games are always a challenge. Kentucky's a solid team, so this is a game that's going to be about stopping the run. First and foremost, you got to slow down Kentucky's running attack with Ray Davis. They've been one of the most effective running teams, in the league this year. So that's going to be priority one is trying to slow him down. But as we mentioned with Kentucky too, I've liked what I've seen from Devin Leary the last few weeks. We know about their weapons on the outside. We've been really high on them, really for the last year or two. So it's going to be it's going to be a challenging game. Obviously, it's never easy on the road in the SEC. But I do like the way the Alabama is trending, down the stretch here.
And there's something that I got to say, and this is from the most unbiased viewpoint there is, because I hate both of these teams that were on the field Saturday in Bryant-Denny. 10 years ago, everybody loved the big hits. They praised the big hits. They absolutely, it's football. You got to love it. And then when they started bringing on the targeting rule, there was not one single fan who wanted that rule or who liked that rule. They said, this is crap. It's taken away from the game. It's football. Big hits are going to happen. But then the very second that their team has somebody get hit that they think is a targeting call, they're going to bitch and moan about crying that they didn't get the targeting call, or that they want the targeting call because it's going to help them. But when it first came out, they were saying this is dumb. We don't want it. But the very second that their team can get it called that can help them out, they're going to cry and moan about it. Brian Kelly sent that freaking play in to the SEC to get it looked at to see if it was an actual targeting call or not. What the hell does it matter? It's not going to change the game now. It's been over. Like, the game is over. It's not going to go and change the trajectory of the game. Even if Jaden Daniels didn't get taken out of the game and there was a targeting call called, it's not going to change the trajectory of the game either, because LSU couldn't stop Alabama. They could not stop them. So it wasn't going to change it regardless. But that's just my thing. How you can't complain about the rule happening and saying you don't like it and you don't want it, it's changing football, but then the second that it doesn't get called against you, you're going to bitch and moan about it. It drives me nuts. People are so upset that he was leading with the crown of his head, which he wasn't. His face mask was directly up. Yeah, it hit him in the chin a little bit, but Jaden Daniels is a tall guy. It's not like he was launching himself at Jaden Daniels' head. He went to make the tackle and his helmet happened to hit him in the chin. Is what it is. He didn't lead with the crown of his helmet. His head was up. He drove him into the ground, which he got called for an unsportsmanlike conduct because he drove him into the ground. So the right call was made there, 100%. I hate the bitching and moaning about not getting the targeting call. If it was a blatant hold or a blatant pass interference, I would get it a little bit. But this was 100% just a football play. The dude was going to hit the quarterback. Anybody that gets a chance to hit the quarterback is going to make it count. He wasn't saying, oh, I'm going to go injure this guy. He was just making a play. Like, he had a wide open shot on the quarterback. He's going to take it. He literally hit him half a second after he let the ball go. Like, the correct call was made. He shouldn't have driven him into the ground. He did. And an unsportsmanlike was called. But the targeting crap and the people bitching about the targeting call not happening, it pisses me off, because I hate Alabama more than anybody. I'm really not a big fan of LSU. I would have wanted both of those teams to lose on Saturday. But the fact that that's why they're saying they lost is atrocious, because did they not see Jalen Milroe run for, 150 yards and 4 touchdowns against them? You're not stopping him all night. What makes you think you're going to stop him because you get a penalty going your way? It's ridiculous.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned this, because I can't believe I didn't, mention this in my opening monologue a few minutes ago about this game. But yeah, there's been, to me, I mean, obviously on Twitter and social media, there's always calls that are debated. This one here, it is crazy to me how long this debate's lingered on for like 3 days. I'm like, honestly, first off, I agree with you. And I'll be honest, if it was targeting, I would say it's targeted. I have no issue saying that was. But it wasn't targeting.
No.
They actually showed one of the CBS angles that they don't have on the broadcast, but they have like in the booth or whatever. It looks from the straight on angle, he hit him, yeah, maybe like in the chin, but his head was actually to the side, like almost in his shoulder. So, and like I said, he didn't leave with the crown of the helmet. He didn't launch. People were saying, "Oh, he launched. His feet came off the ground." The only time his feet came off the ground was when he was falling over on top of him. That's when his feet were off the ground. It wasn't he jumped into him or anything. But I've said this since it happened. It was rough in the past. Like I agree with you totally. The right call was made. I had no issue with roughing the passer. I think that was the 100% the right call, but it wasn't targeting.
No.
Like that's one thing, and people were arguing as if a penalty wasn't called on this.
Yeah, I know.
That was my thing. Like that's what I didn't understand. Okay, if nothing was called on it, okay, I could see your argument a little bit more. And then you had certain college football pundits, like actually college football media. One guy was saying this was textbook targeting. Like this was he said this example was, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but he was saying that was basically this play was basically the literal definition of targeting. Like if he had to describe targeting, this was the example he would use. I was like, I could think of 10,000 examples that are more targeting than this is. That's what I'm saying. I have no issue saying it's targeted. I agree totally. It was a rough in the passer. Nowadays, if you land on the quarterback, you drive your body weight down onto them, you're getting called for a rough in the passer 10 out of 10 times. That doesn't make it targeted. So I didn't agree with that at all. I mean, there's a bunch of times there's been targeting, but this was not.
The textbook for targeting is Junior Rosegreen hitting Reggie Green, I believe who it was, from Georgia, over the middle and getting knocked out. That's the textbook play for targeting because he 100% launched, led with the crown of his helmet, hit the dude head to head, and the guy was knocked out. That is the play you say. This right here, textbook targeting. What happened with Dallas Turner and Jaden Daniels? Not textbook targeting. 100% not. Like, yeah, which I understand the driving into the ground. If you can tell, like, I'll be honest, dude. If this was a rule in 2010, Nick Fairley would have gotten 3 or 4 roughing the passer calls a game because when he hit the quarterback, he picked them up and swanton bombed them into the ground. I mean, he did it on purpose. This one, the Dallas Turner, I mean, he was just tackling him and he did drive him into the ground, but it wasn't a purposeful, I'm driving you into the ground. It was just he was following through his tackle. So people are acting like this was egregious and that he meant to do all this. The dude was just making a tackle. He was just playing football. You're going full speed out there. It's not like we're walking. You know, it's not walkthroughs that we're doing and he's picking him up and slamming him. He's just making a football play. Yeah, again, the right call was made 100%. But the targeting call, the people bitching about that I'm sick of it. Absolutely sick of it. And I could be wrong, but I believe they were down 2 possessions at that time. Were they not?
They were. They were down 42-28, which is
what I thought. The score was 42-28 at that time. You're not going to score 2 touchdowns without Alabama scoring 1. You haven't done it all night. It's not happening. So it would not have changed the game.
And I do want to mention this as well because, you know, Brian Kelly, he was talking about, you know, obviously player safety, and absolutely, he was absolutely right about that. But I think, too, that there was more of a deal made about this because it knocked him out of the game. Like, if he would have got right back up, this wouldn't have been, like, he would have got flagged and kept playing, and it probably wouldn't be as big of an issue. But
you should told him slide all the other games when he's been getting knocked around. This was just the final hit that took him off his rocker. You know, I mean, he's been getting busted at every game this season. We've talked about that a lot.
Yeah, that man does not slide for nothing. But yeah, Brian Kelly's talking about player safety and all like that. So they check him out on the sideline. He comes back in one play. By the way, that dude was woozy. He got a concussion, I believe.
Oh yeah,
It looked like. He comes in for one play, woozes around a little bit, and goes right back out of the game. I'm like, I don't understand why they put him back in the game. Honestly, like,
desperate.
why are you putting him, like, he clearly wasn't right. So I don't know. Like, you want to talk about player safety, but you put your guy back out there. Like,
Yeah.
that just didn't make much sense to me, especially at that point too. But all in all, though, I don't want that to take away from what a great game this was, and I want to tip my hat to Jaden Daniels because he played some excellent football Saturday night, just like he's been doing all year long. I was texting you during the early parts of this game. I was like, win or lose, man, this guy ought to win the Heisman. Definitely ought to be in New York City because, man, he puts your defense in such a bind. It
Oh yeah.
is such a tough cover playing against him and these receivers, man. I mean, Alabama had a spy on him for most of the night. People were like, why isn't Alabama putting a spy on him? And all that. I'm like, they are putting a spy on him. The spy can't tackle him. That's the problem. That's why he's busting 30-yard runs left and right. I was like, our linebackers can't get him on the ground. He's too slippery.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like, I was like, what? Alabama started rushing 5 more in the second half and being able to collapse the pocket a little bit more. So I think that was the big real adjustment in the second half that seemed to kind of help things out for Alabama's defense. But yeah, I mean the big part in the first half was, man, when he would take off, the linebacker or whoever was, kind of in that position just wasn't able to get him to the ground. He's deceptively fast. He's extremely elusive. I mean, you get your hand on him and he just slips away. And I feel like too, when I say puts a bind on your defense, it puts a huge bind on your pass rush because your edge rushers can't rush up the field very much
Right.
because the second and it helps our offensive linemen out because if they can just push that edge rusher up the field just enough, all he's got to do is just step right through that lane and either there's a spy there or not, but if he can kind of get around that guy, it's a 30-yard run because your guys are all locked up in coverage. I mean, especially Alabama plays like a match coverage too. That's what they played for Saban's whole tenure, and if you can get past that spy, man, you got room to run.
Yeah.
There was a couple times, one particular play that Jay Daniels busted. He got past the linebacker and he was running into the secondary and he was running right by Christian Story, who hadn't even turned his back to look that he'd ran. They were like running beside each other almost. And then he realized, oh crap, he's right here. So yeah, he just puts a bind on your entire pass rush, your secondary. I mean, it takes a total team effort. And so I was extremely pleased to hold them to 28, as crazy as that seems. But man, I mean, they're the number one, scoring offense in the country for a reason. I tip my hat because they played a really, really good game, and they're just a problem, every time you match up against them.
100%. I kind of want to talk about Tennessee and Missouri next week. I believe it's at Missouri. Let me double check that. Yes, it is at Missouri, and Tennessee is a 1-point favorite. I'm gonna be real with you. I think Missouri's gonna win this game. I really do. At home, we just talked about how well they're playing, how well Brady Cook's playing, the weapons they got on the receivers. I mean, Luther Burden, like you said, takes a backseat to nobody in the whole league. I think I don't know that Tennessee's going to be able to run the ball as well as they have against everybody else against them. Missouri's playing extremely good football right now, and if I'm picking, I mean that's essentially a pick 'em. -1 or 1-point favorite is essentially a pick 'em. I would take Missouri to win this game outright. I would take their money line. I would take them +1, whatever you want to do. But I think Missouri's going to come away with a victory against Tennessee this week.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited for this game. And to be honest with you, I thought the Georgia Ole Miss game would end up being the 2:30 game, but they got Tennessee, Missouri, and
Yeah.
then Georgia Ole Miss is the night game. So I thought with Georgia Ole Miss being a top 10, that's probably who CBS would select. But you got another top 15 matchup in Columbia. Um, I'm like you. I mean, I do like the way this Missouri offense is playing, though. The what Luther Burden is questionable. They said this afternoon. Obviously, he got a little dinged up in that Georgia game, so kind of curious on his status if he can't go or is not 100%. I mean, that definitely changes the equation a little bit. But if he is healthy or close to it, I do like this Missouri team a lot, man. I love the way their offense is playing, and I think their defense has really stepped up lately too. I mean, um, I thought overall they played fairly well against Georgia. To
Oh
be
yeah.
honest with you, I mean they were able to generate a little pressure at times. Um, get a few sacks on Carson Beck. So I thought they hung in there pretty well, honestly, and I think they've been improving a lot as the years went on. So, um, yeah, I would probably lean Missouri as well. I can't wait to see this game though, man. I mean, it's going to be a great matchup. Um, you know, I want to see how well Tennessee can run the ball on them. I mean, obviously we know that's Tennessee's calling card. They want to, they've got a plethora of running backs in the backfield, and they're not afraid to use them. We know they want to get downhill and use their spread concepts to be able to open some lanes for their running backs. So I do want to see how well they're able to run the ball. I think we'll get a good glimpse of that early on. But yeah, it's going to be a great matchup, and obviously both these teams have a couple losses in the SEC play, but second place is on the line here. Obviously, both are in the top 15, so it's a huge matchup, going down the stretch here.
What is your opinion, or in your opinion, what does Ole Miss have to do this weekend to give Georgia their first loss?
I mean, they got to stop the run or at least slow it down. That's the biggest concern for me is I think Ole Miss's offense can have some success.
100%.
Um, I mean, the way Jackson Dart is playing, the weapons they have on the outside, I mean, I think they have the capability to give them some problems. The only thing that really concerns me is I just don't know if Ole Miss's defense can do enough. That's really the big question for me. Can they slow that run game down enough? And kind of same with the pass game too. The way Carson Beck's playing, I mean, they're just really, really balanced right now. So it's not just the run game; it's really the offense as a whole. But that's the main thing concerns me. The Ole Miss, I don't know if they can get enough stops.
Yep.
Missouri was close enough to doing that. So if I feel like if Ole Miss's defense can play as well as Missouri's did, and give them opportunity, I think they'll have a real shot at it. But I'm not totally confident they can get enough stops and slow Georgia down enough to give themselves like a real chance, in the fourth quarter.
I agree with you. That's what I was going to say. Defensive wise, they're going to have to show up defensively and play the best game of their career. I just don't know that that's going to happen. They've allowed worse teams to score. Not that any team they've played is trash, but they've allowed worse teams to score a lot of points against them. I just think that Georgia, there's something that Kirby Smart does in games like this that he gets his guys playing at that next level, that next gear. They're able to kick it into that next gear, and it's just like, man, where has this Georgia team been all year? And hats off to Kirby and what he's done. I mean, he's on like a 27-game win streak, 28-game win streak, something along those lines, something crazy, outrageous. But the way that he is able to get his guys locked in and focused on the moment, they're not looking ahead to the SC championship, or they're not looking ahead to the national championship in the postseason, whatever it is. He is always able to get them guys ready to go in whatever moment, whatever game they're playing in it. He does that the best of anybody in college football, in my opinion. He makes every game, whichever game does matter. But these kids are 18 to 22 years old. They hear the rumblings. They're on social media. They know what the talks are and that they're supposed to be better than everybody. They're favored in this game, and they're going to beat this team by 30 points or whatever it is. But the way that Kirby is able to get them to lock in on the one game that they're playing that week, and that's the biggest game to them at that time, whether it be Auburn, South Carolina, Tennessee, whoever it is, he is able to get those guys focused on the task at hand better than anybody I've seen at the college level do it. And so that's what I think is going to be the difference maker is the sideline, the person on the sidelines. No hate to Lane Kiffin. I love Lane Kiffin, love watching his teams play. He's a fantastic coach. But Kirby Smart is 100% the best doing it at getting his guys ready to play right now, in my opinion. And I just don't think that Ole Miss's defense is going to have enough answers for this offense because, like you said, they are the most perfectly balanced offense that I can think of. And if you do stop their run game, you've got to stop their pass game. Well, if you're stopping their pass game, their run game is going to be open. If you're stopping their run game, their pass game is going to be open. They're going to find a way to get theirs 100%. But defensive-wise, he's always got an answer. He's always got an answer for whatever offense he's playing. And I just think that Georgia's going to have too much for him this week. I think that Ole Miss is going to get theirs early, but I think in the second half it's going to be all Georgia. I mean, we've talked about it a couple of times on this podcast. Georgia in the third quarter is one of the best teams. They're going to win every game. They could beat the Patriots right now. I mean, it's ridiculous. Not that the Patriots are any good, but they're an NFL team. Georgia in the third quarter, they turn it on. First, second, fourth, hit or miss. But in the third quarter, them boys are ready to roll. I don't know what he does at halftime, but in the third quarter, they're hitting on all cylinders. But if they have another game like they did against Kentucky or like they did against, I can't remember who it was, like 3 or 4 weeks ago when they're playing a full, complete game, I don't see any answers for Ole Miss. And I think that's what we're going to see from Georgia this week. Let's see. Georgia is a 10.5-point favorite. I'm going to be honest. I like that line. I'm probably taking Georgia this week at the 10.5. If I was to bet this game, and I'm probably going to bet this game, I'm probably taking Georgia at 10.5. I think they're going to win by 2 touchdowns or more. I just think I don't think Ole Miss is going to have any answers for them defensively because, like I said, Ole Miss's defense is just not to the caliber that they need to be to compete with these guys for 4 quarters, even without Brock Bowers.
Yeah, I kind of want to touch on what you said about Kirby, and I agree with you. I mean, obviously, I think it's pretty clear, Nick Saban and Kirby Smart, they're the 2 best coaches in college football.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the thing that Kirby does better than anybody, including Saban, is, and Saban's great at this as well, but Kirby, man, how he can motivate his guys and constantly push the right buttons is incredible. When they're on this kind of win streak and they're back-to-back national champs, and every game, man, there's not much variation in their performance at all. I mean, just the way he's able to get his guys to lock in and focus, and there's just never many letdowns. And he's even alluded to this year. He's like, yeah, we're not as dominant. Like, there's not going to be as much margin for error this year. So, but still, there's not a bunch of dips in their performance. I mean, they consistently and come out, kind of ready to go. Every game, regardless of the opponent, and kind of come out ready to take care of business, basically. So, I think Kirby Smart is the best motivator in college football, and the way he has his pulse on his players in that locker room, I think he does that as well or better than anybody. I'm like you too. It's kind of like with Georgia, man. Until I see it, it's kind of like it's hard picking against them, honestly. I do agree, with what Kirby said. I do think they are more vulnerable, and you always wonder, when you've won this many in a row, like when's the time gonna be when you just slip up and you're just off? I mean, you got to think like it's got to be coming eventually. It's eventually going to happen. So, but it's kind of one of those things like you can kind of pick it, like you can pick it every time it'll eventually happen, but doesn't mean you're going to pick it very often. So, I got to go with Georgia. I mean, they're at home. I do think it will be competitive. I feel. I kind of feel like it be pretty similar to the Missouri game. But in the end, though, I think too much Georgia. I just, like we mentioned, I just don't think Ole Miss's defense can get enough stops to really give them a legit chance in the fourth quarter.
100%. And we already covered Auburn and Arkansas a little earlier. Is there another game you want to cover this week? I mean, I guess Alabama, Kentucky, bit of a trap game for Alabama, maybe. I mean, looking forward, obviously they aren't going. They're like we just talked about. Kirby Saban's not allowing his guys to look forward, but they are 18 to 22-year-olds. They read the message boards. They're on social media. They're supposed to beat this Kentucky team. They are much better than this Kentucky team. They can play their B- game and beat this Kentucky team, but there's always a game that you should win, and it's way too close for comfort, or you let it get away from you. I feel like this is one of those types of games for Alabama, or could be a trap game for Alabama, because you got to not who they got next week. Is it a no-name team next week after?
Yeah, Chattanooga.
Yeah, Chattanooga, and then you got the Iron Bowl, and whether it's 0-0 or 10-0 or 11-0, 12-0, whatever it is, it don't matter. It's the Iron Bowl, so everybody's going to be up for that game. I feel like this game's a bit of a trap game for Alabama.
Yeah, I think too. I feel like the week after the LSU game is always a difficult one that can kind of,
because the emotions are so high that week previous.
Yeah, I think just I don't want to say necessarily sneak up on you, but I feel like it's one. There's always so much put into that Alabama LSU game.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, though, I do think it certainly has the potential to be that way. I think Alabama's going to take care of business. I think the way their offense is trending gives me more confidence in saying that a little bit. I do think Alabama will have a good chance to slow that run game down for Kentucky. But anytime you go on the road in this conference and it's 11 a.m. kick, I mean, the recipe's always there to start off a little slow, a little sluggish.
Mm-hmm.
So that wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world for sure. But like I said, I do like the way Alabama's offense has trended the last few weeks and the way Jalen Milroe is playing. I'm curious to see how much they lean on the quarterback run game. Will they feature it as much as they did against LSU in every game going forward, or maybe dial it back a couple notches and maybe wait till a little bit later in the year, in the Iron Bowl, or if they win this week, they win the SEC West. So in the SEC championship game against Georgia, so my prediction is I do think they'll dial back on it a little bit, because I do think they want to limit his hits a little bit as well, and maybe not run it quite as much. But I think this is this is a team. Hopefully they'll be able to run the ball with their backs a little bit. They got that going in the second half against LSU. So definitely a trap game. Definitely a game you got to watch out for, because I mean this is still, at the end of the day, a really solid Kentucky team, and they're going to be ready to go for sure, because this is one of the biggest games on their schedule. But hopefully Alabama's offense can keep trending, and showing what they've shown the last few weeks, and kind of keep going on that upward trajectory. I'm going to have my eyes on that, obviously, Penn State-Michigan game, one of the biggest out-of-conference games, Big Ten, East.
Michigan don't have their signs right now.
Yeah, I mean, you got the big three in the Big East, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, all ranked in the top 10. So really excited to see how that one shakes out. Obviously, as you mentioned, with the sign stealing thing kind of looming over Michigan right now, going to Happy Valley. So that's going to be a really challenging game. And honestly, the first time Michigan's really been tested this year.
Yeah.
I mean, we know Michigan's a good team. Nobody's denying or arguing that, but we really don't know what they are. I mean, at this point in the year, because I mean, I feel like this is the first time where they're playing a legit, top 10, top 15 caliber team that, that can really legit give them a challenge. So I'm going to be looking forward to that one a lot. We got that Ohio State Michigan game looming here in a couple weeks. So I'm curious to see if all those Big Ten teams, if they all end up with a loss, kind of that round robin, giving each other a loss. So really interested to see how that game unfolds. And but we got a great week 11 lined up in the SEC. Like I said, it's hard to believe we're at that point already.
I know it.
This year just continues to fly by, but we'll be back next week to break it all down and hope everybody will tune back in with us, and we really appreciate it. And be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps us out, and we just appreciate everybody tuning in.
Thank you, guys.